For those of you who I've not yet met, I'm Anne Fortescue, and I have the pleasure and privilege of serving as the executive director here at IMAS, the International Museum of Art and Science. Tonight, or this afternoon, marks just a wonderful culmination of several years' worth of work. The museum was very fortunate to receive an Institute of Museum and Library Services grant a couple of years ago to study our Mexican and Latin American folk art collection. The museum holds in public trust just shy of 6,000 pieces of Mexican and Latin American art. And I will say we have 2 planned gifts waiting in the wings, which will more than double the collection. So it will be quite a holding in going forward into the future. So we need to know more about the objects that we are caring for and exhibiting. And the grant provided us the opportunity to work with 2 amazing, wonderful scholars, one of whom is here this evening, and Marcelo will introduce him in a moment. The other scholar is Dr. Jill Wexler. She's based in New York City, but she's a San Antonian native, and she did her PhD work at the University of California, Los Angeles, and her area of specialization was Mexican textiles. And so while she was studying her anthropology degree, she was also in conversation with many of the women who were making the textiles, and she started to build a collection because of the passion that she had for the work and for their artistry. So, after several years of study, working with some remarkably talented undergraduate and graduate school interns from the anthropology department at UTRGV, Marcelo and Luneta Galvan, our exhibits coordinator and curatorial assistant, along with Joe Lopez, who is our exhibits technician, put together this incredible exhibit showcasing just a sliver, literally just a sliver of the permanent collections that we have here. So I'm going to turn the microphone over to Marcelo and let him tell you a little bit more. And we also have a special treat which he'll share with you following our brief remarks. Marcelo.
Thank you very much. Welcome everyone. Para mis amigos hispanoparlantes, bienvenidos. Et pour notre amis francophones, bienvenue. So a little bit about this exhibition, Voces del Arte Popular, IMAS Mexican Folk Art Collection. So you're going to notice a very, very long book behind me. We're very fortunate to have a copy of the facsimile of the Codex Borbonicus. The Codex Borbonicus is an Aztec manuscript, a screenfold manuscript that was created sometime around the 16th century. Now, we're utilizing this piece as a jumping off board to look at the contemporary popular arts of Mexico today. Our argument, in essence, is that the technologies, the clothes, the colors, the ceramics, the textiles that you see here long predate the publishing of this book in the 16th century and have been active in Mexico for thousands of years and continue to be so. Just an example of that is this backstrap loom right here behind you. In the Americas, the production of textiles precedes the production of ceramics. So in the Americas, textiles have been immeasurably important for thousands of years. And we have the indigenous communities of Mexico to thank for keeping these traditions alive and bringing them into the mainstream. These pieces are intimately part of the identity of Mexico, I'll say. You're going to see pieces of traditional paper, you're going to see low-fiber ceramics, you're going to see handmade textiles, all of which span a tradition of several thousands of years of production. So that's what we're celebrating here today. Just to tell y'all a little bit more about some of the work that we did, I'll hand it over to Dr. Servando Hinojosa, But after we're done with our remarks here, I'd like to invite y'all into our Clark Black Gallery, where we will have an incredible performance by the Ballet Folclórico Damas de Reynosa, and who will be showing us a little bit of this continuation of this tradition of a narrative dance, in where we're seeing a story or seeing somewhere represented through dance and this nonverbal communication, all of which is very much documented in the document that we have behind us. So thank you all very much for being here. Without further ado, Dr. Servando Hinojosa.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm very honored to be here to share a few words for you. I don't have prepared remarks. My name is Servando Hinojosa. I'm a cultural anthropologist at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. My own background is in ethnography of Mesoamerica, primarily fieldwork with Midas and Guatemala. I've additionally done a lot of other kinds of research with other parts of Mesoamerica up to the present day, and increasingly with objects and records from the 16th century, those moments of contact. That's why it's been really exciting for me to be invited to be part of this project that's unfolded, at least over the past couple of years, thanks to Marcelo and Anne and some other folks. And we had the chance with our interns from UTRGV to help bring more understanding to these many different objects that form part of this wonderful collection here at the museum. And beyond the work of cataloging and reassessing the details of the pieces, we've had the chance to really mull over and think about what they mean as a whole, what they mean as human productions. Because really when we look at these different objects, the cloths, the textiles, the ceramics, the pieces of wood, we're looking at things meant to be used, to be worn, to be handled, to be replaced, to be updated, to be discarded maybe, but also to be thought of as part of daily life, not to be put away in a closet or forgotten. And so we're really looking at a very kinetic and lived slice of life when we see these objects. And we can especially see that if we look at a couple of the masks around the corner there, which are still used in southern Mexico and Morelos, Guerrero especially, in connection with rain invitations, rain ceremonies, to ensure this agricultural way of life, even in places where more and more people live in more urban life ways. But like Marcelo said, we're very fortunate to be able to have in the film collection there this facsimile of the Codex Borbónicos, because it represents a tradition of record keeping, of teaching, of memory, that was one of the first things that the Spaniards targeted when they came into this continent. They wanted to destroy older ways of thinking, knowing, understanding the cosmos. Fortunately, a few prized pre-Columbian codices were saved from destruction. Others, like this one, were put together with the aid of native tlacuilos or artists, painters, scribes, who were prompted to create a record of how time was measured, how time was displayed. And luckily for us, they captured a lot of the understandings of the used objects of the time, from pottery to ceramics, wood, weapons, and other things. So we use this, like Marcelo said, as a kind of stopping off and an anchor for the exhibition. You can see a lot of what later featured as lived objects portrayed in the Codex, sometimes in more or less detail, but they're extremely useful, these images, to give us a sense of the depth of knowledge that was sadly not interrupted permanently or erased permanently, but paused and given an opportunity, forced as it was, to transform. Because at the very end of these documents, which was even longer originally, we've lost some folios over time, there is the end of one 52-year cycle that was the main large cycle of the post-classic period, the Aztec period, and it ends as the next cycle is beginning. And that cycle begins somewhat ominously with a pronouncement that the Aztec king was going to fall because the strangers had arrived, the Spaniards. So we're left with this possibility of, and this realization of the unfinished history the central Mexican world. But as we can see on these walls and in other parts of this gallery, that history was never ended. It was never exterminated. It was simply transformed into the living arts that we are lucky to have examples of in the present day. So I don't want to keep you from the remainder of this event, and certainly not from the drinks over there. So I can hand it back to Anne. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Noah. Before we invite you into the pet gallery for the folklorical performance, I would be remiss if I didn't recognize the support of our IMAS trustees. We have a number of trustees with us this evening. Trustees, if you would just please wave your hand so that we can recognize you for your support, your leadership, your guidance. It's really, it's one of the things that motivates us and makes us work hard and engage the community in all the ways that we do. So, I guess let the performance begin. Thank you.